Okay, we're live. We're back. That was exciting.
hmm
So thank you everyone for tuning in. I will just kind of go through a little brief intro as we had some technical difficulties there. So again, my name is Dana Rourke, and I am the owner of Reclaiming the Wild. And I have our first guest here, which I'm super excited about. I've got Samantha from SamanthaLynn Wellness, and she is going to be helping us kick off our Hump Day Hiatus, a little pause from diet culture that we're going to be doing on Wednesdays. And yeah, so we are all set to go. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. This is awesome.
You're so welcome. I'm glad that you're here with us.
Yeah.
So as I was mentioning before, I've kind of created the series just to really help folks find some resources in our local community. Sam and I are both in Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo. And yeah, I really just wanted people to have a place to go to first and foremost know that there are alternative providers out there who practice from a weight inclusive and body inclusive lens, and then highlight some of the folks in the local community here. And then also I'm going to be taking the show on the road globally as well with some other guests. So do you want to let us know a little bit about yourself and what you do and why you're passionate about it? We can start there.
Sure. So I am Sam, and I am a personal trainer. For Dana and I beforehand were chatting about how I don't love that term, but I have yet to find one that I feel fully like encompasses everything that I do. So we'll use that one for now. I'm a personal trainer in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. I run out of a private studio in my home. And that was mostly so that I could remove myself for my own mental well-being from a gym space that did its best but was no longer serving me. I sort of came at this from I grew up in a weight loss mentality, and I think my story is very similar to many, where from about puberty on, I was pretty consistently trying to lose the extra weight I was told didn't belong to me, and devalued me and my body. So after sort of achieving this or feeling like I had ticked that milestone, I along that way fell in love with weight training and just felt the power that it gave me, and wanted to walk alongside folks as they found that for themselves. And so how I practice has evolved over the past 5 years, which I'm grateful for that. And we can chat about some of the people who have helped me in sort of shifting and changing and growing and learning. But now it's really about walking alongside people as they find their power and strength again. And that the lens I do that through is very much a weight training, strength training sort of modality. But it's either one-on-one or two-on-one training, and it's really at your own pace. So the most important thing, whether you're in a group fitness class that I'm running or in my gym space, is that you know that your body in this space, even though I'm the practitioner, it still belongs to you, and it still is yours to tell me if what I'm asking you to do doesn't feel right, and sort of supporting people as that, because that can change every day, right? We wake up and what
Absolutely.
my body needs today is maybe not what it needed yesterday, and just sort of reminding people of their innate intelligence and connection with their body through weight training. So yeah, that's what I do every day.
I
Yeah.
love it. And I love the emphasis on um, how each individual knows and is the expert on their body. That really very much aligns with body trust work and my training as a body trust provider.
Yeah.
Where you know what's best, right? And through listening and experimenting and trying new things, not trying new things, yeah, you know what your body needs.
Yeah. And I think
Go
we
ahead.
have to unlearn so much to get back to that place, because a lot of the systems that we sort of operate within are coaching us in the other direction. They're telling us that these experts know what's best, and sort of to blindly follow. And they may not explicitly be saying those words, but it's sort of implied in the way that we structure things and the way we speak with physicians and all of those folks. So yeah, it became really obvious that it was important to, for, even for my own well-being, to create a space that was different and outside of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we really do, we know our bodies. We've lived in it the longest. You're the only one who knows all of those things, because it's yours. Yeah, yeah,
Totally. And
yeah,
something else that I find often, a lot of the narratives around this kind of expert mentality, like you were just describing, um, often, override our own internal wisdom.
yeah,
And one of the things that I have really been processing and trying to work through with my relationship with movement is the idea that there's always a goal, that we're working towards something, and that something that we're working towards usually isn't rooted in pleasure, and it usually isn't rooted in weight neutrality. Like there's usually always some way that we're working on, or to our bodies.
mm-hmm.
And I like to say, and with my training, I've been taught that we work for and with our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And so, pleasure is often, and the joy in movement is often not even considered, right? It's like this no pain, no gain.
yeah.
You do it because you have to, because, it's the responsible, healthy thing to do. I don't like either of those words, but
No.
I'll use air quotes a lot.
Yes.
It's like Dana doesn't like
Yes.
this word.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of conversations that sort of root in this fixing idea, where you and your body are broken, and it's because you've done wrong, or because you've harmed, or the list goes on and on. And so I think, yeah, I think that a part of the work is getting myself and other people who are with me back to this place of, there's nothing wrong, you're not broken, you are a whole wonderful human being, uh, and we're all meant to look and be different. And that's a big thing too, right? As we live in this sort of thin body centered society, and some folks are meant to be in that shape and size of body, and but lots of us are not. But that's not really demonstrated anywhere. It's starting, it's coming, and I can't tell if it's because my circle is sort of, I'm honing it, or if it's really because this is growing in prominence. But I'm hopeful that it's coming.
Yeah.
But certainly I hear it every day. Every client that comes in, it's sort of this flippant, subconscious like dialogue that goes on of, how we celebrate folks, how we goal set, what our goals are, or how, so I often see, especially when people come in pairs, they almost assume, they make assumptions that everyone's here to achieve this sort of thinner, more toned body, and that's the like overarching goal of all women in particular, when in all reality, like, they might just be there to move because it feels good. And how wonderful is that? Yeah, yeah,
How wonderful is that?
yeah. How simple, how like,
Yeah.
let's take the shame and guilt out of it and just like let it be, because it feels good, and find what feels good. Yeah.
I remember experiencing moments like that as, a little girl.
Mm.
And I can honestly say that it's only been, so I'm 35 now, and only just this year was I able to experience that again,
Yes.
right? Is moving for joy.
Yes.
And, the theme that we're talking about this month, and which is our core element of a body trust practice, is having self-care rooted in weight neutrality,
Yeah.
and what that can look like for us when our goal isn't to change or alter the size shape of our body.
Mm-hmm.
What does self-care look like? If we put weight on the back burner and just decide to move forward in ways that support and care for ourselves. How do we do that? How do, like,
Yeah.
what would that look like in the, to start something like that?
I know. And I think I often find myself wondering about this and just sort of trying to hone a better or more refined answer, because I think it is, but I think what I often land on is that the solution is complex and it's not, and there's probably not just one answer. I talk for my body, my movement, and sort of I find my self care often involves movement and just cutting out whatever amount of time I find for myself that feels like peaceful and like it's truly enhancing life instead of burdening. Um, but what that looks like is it varies based on energy needs, based on what else I've been met with in the day. Sometimes it's like based on how much I've been able to actually eat in a day, just based on time and all of those things, or how much energy I've given socially in a day. Sometimes my self care involves laying on the couch, and that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but it's like this daily assessment of like getting rid of the guilt associated with those things too, which I think lots of us can relate to.
Yeah.
Um, I wish there was such a like a clear answer, but I think within the sort of wellness spectrum, what I find more and more is that there is no one way, because all our bodies are so unique.
Yeah.
Um, that as a practitioner, I think it's my job to actually not find the answer, but to encourage folks to discover what it is for them, um, and to not judge themselves when they feel like they figured it out and then it changes, because
Yeah.
that happens, right?
I find that happens all the time. And one of the things that I, you know, kind of arrived at while coming to this new way of caring for myself, um, was not making a plan.
Yes. Yes.
Like we want to have control of things, and we want to feel like we've got some sort of authority over them. And you talk about diet culture and how the whole thing is just based in these plans that don't work, and these cycles that keep repeating and repeating, because we blame, and then we blame ourselves when it doesn't work, not the plan. And you know plans don't work. So
No.
I have to finally come to terms with the fact that, like, okay, so I may think that, tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do X.
Yeah.
And when I wake up tomorrow morning, I may feel differently and end up doing Y instead. And
Mm-hmm.
that's totally okay.
Yes. Yeah. And it sounds so wonderfully peaceful and simple. Um, but I know, because I'm a human, that it can feel like really dissonant and like,
Totally.
because I've been socialized now for 27 years that that isn't the way, and that's I'm copping out, or I'm weak, or I am giving up on myself, or not holding myself accountable, or lazy, or whatever. There's so many words people associate with those things, but what if what if actually that's just being well? What if that's actually just caring for yourself and loving for yourself? And why does it have to be something negative that you chose to listen to what your body was sharing with you? Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And even in the gym too, I have often, including myself, people come and they apologize for moving slowly, or they apologize for not getting as much done as they felt like they needed to, or like they have in the past. And it's like this, there's just no need for that judgment. Like, you showed up today for yourself, and you setting your own pace is you honoring your body and respecting what it needed in this moment, uh, and you found movement that suited you for today. That's like, that deserves a giant round of applause. Yeah. Yeah, instead of this default shame and guilt.
Absolutely. I kind of what was coming up for me as I was listening to you talk about that is, this idea that compassion is, when we offer ourselves self-compassion, it's looked at as if it were complacency or
Yes.
something negative, like apathetic, instead of, so being self-compassionate is probably the hardest thing that we can ever do.
Totally.
right? Is offering that to ourselves, which we offer to others. And yet, we're still socialized to see it as like you were saying, a cop out, lazy
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. Yeah. One of my favorite quote at the moment right now is by Nair Wahid, and it's, "You will find your way. It's in the same place as your love." And I found anytime that I go to force myself to do something that I really don't want to do, I start, asking myself why. And I come to that quote because it kind of just allows me to drop the bootstraps. It's like, I don't have to do this the way that I'm told it has to be done in order to be done right.
Yes.
It can look however it's going to look. And by following what feels good, there's so much language around if it's not hard, it's not worth it. You've got to work for everything. And it's like, no. There can be ease.
Yes. And search for it.
Yeah.
Let that be what dictates the path.
The path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Right.
Even if your community doesn't agree.
Yeah.
That's that piece, right? Where it's, you have to separate your version and definition of success from the ideals that the people around you may believe is actually right and appropriate. And that can be the hardest part.
So how was there anything that helped you to be able to do that and kind of find that resiliency and that strength within yourself to separate those two and go your way despite everyone else?
Hard. I feel like a lot of it, it's still evolving, but I think a huge piece is, one, I'm very fortunate to have a very close sort of immediate family and community that is in agreement with some of my philosophies around movement and life in general. So that's a huge gift. But also, I am a strong believer that you attract what you put out. And I think that there's been some, planning in that too, or sort of attracting those people. But certainly it's honing that craft of listening to your gut and knowing when, that was when I knew that I would never be able to work in a classical gym environment. Was I could just feel in my gut that I would be asked to serve my clients in a way that wasn't what I felt was actually serving wholly their whole wellness. Because there's lots of rules that gyms have to follow that are there for a reason and for good reason. However, I have the privilege of opting out of that community and into one that feels more aligned. And even in terms of, so I've had the privilege of working a contract with the YWCA of Cambridge this year. And that too, that again has just grown this community of people who I can have conversations like this with, that's filling my cup, that's energy giving. And it gives me the confidence when I'm around folks who maybe don't see the world in the same way that I do, or don't feel the same way about movement and exercise and eating that I do. It reaffirms me and allows me to move more certainly. But it takes time.
Yeah. And I also, I as we're chatting, I'm thinking about, just the optics of, you and I on screen here, we're both white. Yeah. We are, in, thin, we're in completely acceptable
bodies,
normal bodies. And there are folks out there who don't share the same privilege and body privilege that we do. And, I often think that, you and I may have had our own internalized, fat phobia and weight bias. And yet we can leave our houses and walk out in the world and not have anything spoken to us while we're walking down the street. We don't get judged for what's in our grocery cart. We do not, get get glances or looked at for what we order off of a menu when we're out eating food. We can eat out in public and not be scrutinized. You know, and I often find myself thinking like, you know, what resiliency and strength, you know, is needed to often sometimes just simply be in this world because of how horrible our biases are to folks in larger bodies.
Totally. I agree. I'm really glad you said that, because even as you asked me to come and chat today, that was one of the things that sort of crossed my mind was, and I feel like maybe to a fault, very aware of this and almost apologetic in how I practice, because like I'm another white female who's in a straight size thin body talking about movement. Like, it's just, you know, when is it time to make space for others who have different experiences in the world because of the way they show up just physically, right? Yeah. I think what's interesting too is, so a lot of my clients have known me for quite some time, and I've spent the majority of my life in a plus size body. So I've spent less time in this version of myself, and so, but I need to be aware that people, when I show up, they don't know that, and so they see me in the version of myself I am today, and not to apologize for that, but to own that privilege, and that like I can stand here confidently because I know that the world sees my body as being valuable without knowing anything about me, and that's like makes me devastated, but also like, you know, that's something to be aware of and to just know moving forward. Yeah, but also why I kind of like existing in my own little like bubble. Yeah, because it is like that. Anyway, you can walk around the gym and you see it everywhere. It's that, or in the way people say things like flippantly, like, "Oh, you look so tiny," like, "Congratulations." Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. How that's always congratulated, right? Even though people think they're paying you a compliment, you know, it's such a disservice.
Yes, and you don't know. Yeah, you have absolutely no idea what their intention for their body is, or how they achieve that, and is that really like I think health and thin sort of are used as the same interchangeable word. And,
oh, totally.
That grinds my gears. So
yeah,
because they aren't necessarily.
No. Thinness is not equated with health in my work.
No. Yeah.
You know, and how we are. One of the things that I really like to kind of draw attention to is how we're packaged and sold health in our culture right now versus like what health actually is.
Yes.
You know, and I don't know what it is. And it changes every single day. You know, I think, oh, I want to have, you know, fluidity in my body. I'd like to be able to do certain things without aches and pains. You know, but where we're at with our bodies always changes. It's the only thing we can guarantee. Over time, things are going to change. And if we subscribe to such a narrow definition, right, we're going to be just creating more shame and more guilt and blame, especially, right? I find that so much of our culture right now is rooted in our health behaviors, when the data is out there that shows us that, you know, how we move, what we consume, and our genetics really ultimately at the end of the day can be, you know, 25% of our total health outcomes can be attributed to those, right? Yeah. The rest of that 75% are all the social determinants of health, right? So whether or not we live in a marginalized body and are stigmatized, what our job security is, where we live in the world, our socioeconomic status, you know, our gender orientation, all these things have so much of an impact on health. And so, you know, it also has very much to do with how the outside world treats us, and much less to do at times with how we treat ourselves. Right. And I always like folks to know that, you know, it's not all on you.
No, totally.
You know, like we're taught that health is within our control, and it's It's totally not. So like if we acted like it wasn't, what would we do to care for ourselves, right? What would we do for joy, for pleasure, to care for ourselves?
Yes. Yeah. And giving yourself permission to remove yourself. And I know there's privilege in walking away. I know that. Um, but I think more, I see it more. And again, I don't know if it's because I'm honing my circle or if it's because it really is just more prevalent, but I see a lot of that on Instagram now, a lot of those conversations around like, give yourself permission to walk away. Um, not all friends are friends that are meant to be sort of consistent in your life.
Yeah.
And trusting that gut feeling of like, just because this person has served you and felt like they fit and were aligned in the past doesn't mean that moving forward that's necessarily the case, right? We all shift and evolve and learn. And sometimes that means that there's separation. Um, and it's okay to mourn that and to be
Mhm.
sad. But again, that's like creating that safe space for yourself in as many different facets of your life as possible is a good, it's good. It's a good practice,
Yeah.
and it does, but it takes practice because um, there's guilt in that too, in walking away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the more I chat with folks and reflect on my own journey and practices as well, I I find that allowing space for grief, and this is also another one of the core elements of body trust and practicing that is, the space that grieving takes up in my world on a daily basis um, just continues to grow and grow,
Mm-hmm.
for the way that things were, for the way that they're not, um, and for the way that they are sometimes, right? And it's being real um, and allowing ourselves to feel that life is hard, right? And the more marginalized you are, the harder it can be.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And we lose that common humanity when we don't acknowledge these pieces.
Mm-hmm. I hear that like daily, I would say, from people coming in and um, trying to, I don't even know how to word this. They're not allowing themselves to excuse their behavior. So sometimes I have students who come and their lives are sort of centered around exams and the stress of school and balancing that and jobs, and the money is like post-secondary education is wildly expensive. And then they're trying to also be mindful of sort of their well-being, and they enjoy movement. And um, I find that if we can allow ourselves to sort of flow with the ebbs and flows of life, and knowing that like sort of I talk about the spectrum of wellness and how there's so many different, I mean, we've already sort of touched on that, our social well-being and then our actual like physical health, but then also like our mental wellness. And um, it's hard to get all of those spot on all at the same time. So, and hard maybe doesn't even do it justice. Like I sometimes feel like it's impossible to like have them all at 100%. I feel
Totally.
like it's not a thing that can happen. So be kind to yourself because they're going to shift, right? And some days it's about finding silence and stillness, and some days it's about finding movement, and some days it's about being with people and communicating, and some days it's about like not being with anybody because you're just needing to sort of be with yourself and sort of mend that relationship. And sometimes school takes a precedent, and it gets overwhelming, and it means that the way you eat shifts, and you're sort of eating to soothe or eating to comfort. And we've been told that those things are not excusable or not allowed or something to be given permission to do. Um, and yeah, so that's sort of, I find that that's where I'm shifting my business, is like, how do you um, support people as they sort of unlearn some of that stuff or
Yeah.
learn that stuff? Because it's for a lot of us, it's a lifetime of this conversation around like, there's the bad foods and the good foods, and the lists are, of bad foods it's enormous. And it's all the fun ones. So,
Right? Yeah.
right. So, yeah. And yeah, knowing that like when it's time to just sort of be mindful of your emotional well being and your mental well being, and knowing that sometimes food is the answer to that, and movement is
Mhm.
it's not. It's actually adding stress to your life and to your body, which is not the goal. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's almost like, unlearning is like kind of looking at life through a different lens, like to when we're trying to care for ourselves and we're looking through the lens that tells us that we need to be in a certain size and shape of body,
mm-hmm.
it really obstructs our capacity to of what we can do and what we're actually possible
Yes,
and what is actually possible for us, because everything is getting filtered through this. Well, is it going to
mm-hmm.
get me to where I've decided
Mm-hmm.
my goal is, right? Instead of kind of letting the body decide that for us and doing our best to support the body instead of the goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's so multi-level because everything is, I find, at least I have not yet found a way to exist in the personal training realm without uh fielding like all diet culture things. It is because people come and they expect it, and when they don't get it, sometimes they feel like they're actually, this has never happened. I've never had anyone say I don't feel like I'm getting what I paid for,
Mhm.
but I do feel like like there's this um, like urgency in people who like they it's like they need it to understand their purpose and why they're showing up in that space, and um, that's okay because I also like grew up and still exist in a world that diet culture is it's the loudest still, that voice. Um, yeah, but I still am like I'm working towards figuring out how to intentionally keep it out. Because it
Yeah,
is like it's
yeah,
as simple as how we comment on bodies or how we comment on food or the liquids people are choosing to eat or um, like frequency of sessions or and it's
yeah.
sometimes it's conversations we're having with ourselves and sometimes it's the way we're judging and speaking about other people and anyway I don't this is not necessarily helpful but it's all my wonderings that sort of roll around in my brain. It's like how do I or can I exist as a personal trainer who does not allow space for diet culture?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I don't necessarily have an answer. I think it's a team project. Like I think that as a community, myself and my clients together, like it's about intentionally working towards that and meeting people where they are too, right?
Mhm, mhm, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because it
Yeah.
is like I had a client who like had this click the other day. And it was one of the most profound things I've ever witnessed in my life. But she just was like, I am so sorry for bringing this into your space. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like just want to weep with joy for you because this
Yeah.
is the job I signed up for is to walk alongside people as they piece these things together.
Yeah.
And you just had an aha moment that I have been like just waiting for you. And it's so gorgeous. It's amazing. Like how much relief do you feel? Yeah. I had Ashley Bennett is like one of my faves. She's a health at every size. She talks a lot about this, and she says when you get it, you will either laugh hysterically or sob, and I still consistently do both.
Yes.
So but she's spot on. It's like this moment of like, oh my gosh, you just get like shaken out of it, and then you exist sort of on this other side
Yeah.
of yeah, it's a different lens. You just assess things differently, and it's weird.
Yeah. I remember having like when it first happened for me, I thought that I was losing my mind
Yes.
because I felt like I was now living in a different realm, like in a different plane, but on the same
Yeah.
planet.
You're like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, totally.
yeah. Speaking a different
And
language.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, there's still so much that I don't know. There's still
Yes.
so much that I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, those moments are so precious and so liberating.
The
Yeah.
relief, you can just see it like on people's faces, and like I can feel it in myself, so I know that it's just that like, oh my gosh, I don't actually have to constantly wake up feeling shame about my body. Like that's not a requirement baseline to exist as a human being. Like who knew? And
Yeah.
it is like it's, I'm sort of being funny, but it's like true. Like people, like
100%.
I remember more times in my life where you wake up and you go, okay, I have to dress this body again today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
It's beautiful. Highly recommend Ashley Bennett. She's phenomenal. Follow her
Thank
on
you.
Instagram. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. Anything else? I'm just looking at the time. We've got about 5 more minutes. Is there anything else that you would like to touch on or share with us that we haven't brought up yet?
I feel like we've got through so much. It's been a lovely conversation. I I think the biggest thing is just knowing the goal for myself is just to move forward every day, being mindful of the body bias that sort of has manifested itself in my head. And
Yeah.
I think if we all can make that an intention, I don't like the word goal, and I feel like I use it a lot. An intention, put
Yeah.
your mind in that direction. I think we'd see so much relief, even for ourselves.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just,
No, it totally makes perfect sense.
it's a different mindfulness where it's like we don't need to, other people's bodies are not ours to assess. They're
Mhm.
not ours to place judgment on. Just because you see someone doesn't mean you understand anything about them. In fact, you probably know nothing about them.
Yeah.
And the shape and size of our bodies has very little to do with our actual health and well-being. So I think if we can all just work towards collectively shifting some of those defaults, that would feel so good for all of us, because it's exhausting to kind of always be
Yeah.
questioning and judging and living in that sort of negative space. And that would be my challenge for folks, is just, yeah, when you hear yourself, do it, just to stop, because you don't know anything about that person's story, and
Yeah.
be kind about yours because you have one too. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have been able to chat with you.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
for those of you that are listening or watching the recording, I'm going to post all of Sam's contacts info on the Facebook page with the video, and I'll also be uploading the video to my YouTube channel as well. I believe it's just called Reclaiming the Wild. I'm trying really hard to navigate this tech world.
Oh gosh, I know.
Slowly, it's
You're
coming.
great.
Yeah. So anyway, so it'll all be posted there. I'll have the links for you. And please, if you're in the local community, even if you're not, check out Sam's work. She's doing fabulous, fabulous stuff.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Bye.
Bye.